Hi, I'm Melissa. Welcome to Wed and Worth It. We're going to have transparent conversations around budgets and walk through the emotional journey that is wedding planning. We're going to discuss the value of investing in meaningful moments and the joy that comes from creating an experience for yourselves and your loved ones. We talk to newly married couples to find out, was it worth it? Hi, I'm so excited to have Emma here with us today. Her and Ben got married in June of 2024, is that correct?
Yes.
In New York, and I would love to hear all about it. So tell me a little bit about you and Ben and how y'all got engaged and all of that.
Yeah, so we met on Tinder.
Where all good love stories start.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
It's like I'm pretty embarrassed to actually tell people. So every time I say, "Oh, we met on Tinder," I'm like, "Oh no, but we've been together for a while, so it's a real relationship." But whatever, we're married
It's real.
now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think it's fun.
Yeah. But we met in 2017. You know, he's an amazing guy. We have really similar senses of humor.
Mm,
We're both introverts and pretty chill people, so we like to have fun in the same way, which I think is important in any relationship.
very important.
Both of his older sisters got married, one in 2021, which was like a COVID wedding that was postponed like 3 or 4 times.
Yes.
So
Familiar. Yes.
and then the other one in 2022, and we'd been together for I think 7 years. And we weren't people who like the institution of marriage is so important, but we just kind of saw
Mm,
it as like the next logical step in our relationship since we wanted to be together forever. So we went shopping for an engagement ring together, which I really enjoyed. Um,
yeah.
and
Beautiful.
thanks. And then yeah, he proposed on a hike in Banff, Canada,
Wow.
July 3. And then pretty much right from there we started planning. I knew I always wanted a short engagement, and our version of a short engagement ended up being 11 months.
I think that is a relatively short engagement.
Yeah, a lot of my friends or even like people I know, we joke that it's like a shotgun wedding. It's not, but our planner, something about budgets, our planner did charge us a expedited fee for hiring them within a year. So it was
Okay.
every
I'm
month.
assuming within New York that it probably that is expedited. Things are booked out like very quickly. I can only imagine.
Yeah, that was totally the case. So pretty much right away we started like looking at
Mm.
venues and kind of having conversations about what we wanted, and the whole thing with expedited timeline, and then getting married in New York City, which we knew we wanted to do.
Okay, so did you find your planner first or your venue, or how did that work?
We found our venue before we found the planner.
Okay.
And I'm the type of person I love planning. I'm a travel agent, so planning, yeah, I loved planning the wedding more than the actual wedding. So pretty much when it came to looking at a venue, I kind of went in thinking I'm going to be able to plan this all myself. And the venue that we ended up dictating whether we got a planner or not.
Yeah, some do require that.
Yeah, our venue didn't require it, but it was a venue that it's not really a wedding venue. It was a museum here in New York City,
Mm,
which is in
I
a
love that.
beautiful old building. Yeah, I mean, it was extremely
History.
special. Yes, exactly. A lot of history. We wanted to get married in New York City, but we didn't want to get married in like a ballroom that could be anywhere.
Yes. How big was your guest list?
It was it was 150, which was challenging. Ben and I kind of wanted a smaller wedding, and both of our
Mm.
parents wanted something bigger. So 150 was like actually a big win. Um,
Okay, real quick, before like going into the venue, what was your budget to start?
Overall, or just for the venue?
Overall.
Overall, I think I it was 250, or going in thinking 250.
Okay, it was 250. Okay. And then you secured the venue first, right?
Yes, we got the venue first, and the venue, once again, it's a museum, so they don't have catering, they don't have rentals, which is like chairs and
So you have
linen.
to bring everything in.
bring everything in. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to need a planner, not even for the planning part, but definitely like day of,
Logistics.
exactly, for all the logistics.
Yeah, there's no way. Okay, so how quickly after you booked the venue did you find your planner then?
Pretty much I was doing once we went to this museum and we're like, okay, we think that this is the place, even before we signed the contract, I started reaching out to planners immediately.
Okay.
Planners based in New York City, 95% of them were already booked since it was June 22nd, like a weekend in June. But I found, like, through friends, I found like a company that had a planner that was available on that date. So pretty much we hired her actually right before we signed the contract for the venue.
Perfect. So almost like simultaneously.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so where did you go from there? So what percentage of the venue was your budget?
It ended up being around 10%.
Around 10%. Okay. So then that still had room for everything else.
Yes. But I'm really happy that you have this podcast and are talking about budgets and money, because I went into the process not knowing how much things cost, really having no idea what you get for what you pay for.
Yeah, there's a lot of mystery around it,
Mhm.
and I want to demystify it a little bit and have these conversations. I have a whole heart behind it, so I'm so happy that you're willing to share. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, of course, so we had 10% of our budget what was going towards the venue. And then kind of from there, we sat down, which I thought was really important, sitting down and talking about what do we really want? What are things that we
Hmm.
want to invest in? What are things that we don't care about and that we don't want to spend a lot of money on?
So what were your priorities out of that conversation?
Our priorities were like good food
Mm.
and places to sit, pretty much. Which for a venue that doesn't have any chairs was
Yes,
that was top of mind.
that's so interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right. Okay. Places to sit.
yeah.
That's a
Because
good priority.
we also sat down thinking back to all the weddings we've been to in the past. What did we like? What did we not like?
Mm.
Make sure that things we don't like are in our wedding, things we do like are, especially in the short timeline. Pretty much then I started talking to the planner very frequently, having her reach out to caterers, getting quotes, and then also like learning from her about what a good quote is, what should be included, what shouldn't be included. And that's why I really suggest to anyone to have a planner from the beginning, because they're your friend in looking through all these quotes. Yeah, because it's a new experience that hopefully everyone only has to do once.
Yes, yes. There's just so much unknown too, and I
Yeah.
feel like the connections and the knowledge they have is so valuable in the process.
Yeah. And also, what I've learned is that, of course, the quotes that they give you to read the fine details, because you'll learn,
Mm,
okay, something that you thought would be included isn't included. Um,
mm.
and then
Was
those,
that something your planner would find?
not really, because I think also maybe poor on my part, which is like not being that clear to her about what my expectations were.
Okay,
So it was mostly things that I caught, like
okay.
during cocktail hour. Like, do you want hors d'oeuvres? Do you want stations? Like the first quote was just past hors d'oeuvres, but I really wanted to have like at least one station.
Mm.
Just go over and kind of a grazing table. I know it's something they say
Yeah.
now. So having that, something else was with the caterers that, oh, everyone has like a signature cocktail now. So we like talked about a signature cocktail, what we wanted. We ordered the signs for the signature cocktail, and then the final payment was due for the caterer. And then it turned out that the signature cocktail was like $20 a person. So, which was something that I wasn't expecting.
Oh, okay.
In the end, I mean, like, we're not huge cocktail people. It's something that I thought was included that wasn't included, and
Mm.
that in the end was something I spent a lot of money on because we already bought the signs.
We have the signs. We have to use the signs.
Exactly. So just like, spending money on something that I didn't want to really spend money on, and also, signature cocktails weren't even a thing from my parents. We've been talking to my parents about it. My mom was like, thought it was the stupidest thing that we had to pay $20 a person for like a watermelon margarita.
Yeah. It's part of the signs, Mom.
Yeah, exactly.
So the food was really big, and then you also said chairs, seats. Tell me
Yes.
about that. I'm curious about like functioning wise within a museum too, how that works.
Yeah, so we worked with the event coordinator at the museum very closely to kind of set up a layout, which something that I like that we did, which was like making sure that we understood the layout, of course, before we started to look at linens or chairs or trying to figure out what we wanted, just to make sure that whatever we picked actually fit in the space. So, going to these big warehouses in New York City and looking at like all these different table options, all these little the place settings, I learned quickly that like the base price where they say minimum of $100 a person is the thing that probably is the most basic, is usually white.
Yeah, white linen. Yes.
Exactly. And then the price goes up pretty quickly from there for anything that's like more colorful or
Was it overwhelming to see all of the options?
yes, it was. And I think it's even looking at one place setting, it's hard to kind of extrapolate what that one place
Yeah.
setting will look like 150 times over. And I think that was a really hard decision to make because I'm not a designer. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't know what's best. I really looked to like my wedding planner to kind of help me there. And I think we ended up spending more money in that area than I thought we would.
Okay.
The museum is marble, it's white, and I wanted to add some color and to kind of
Mm.
like soften up the space a little bit. So I think we ended up doing like, green napkins and gold silverware, and like kind of fun glasses, which I think even like looking back in the photos, I'm like, oh, the space would have looked way more boring if we didn't have that.
Yeah, I think that adding color is a fun way to warm
Yeah.
it up. Were there different spaces for ceremony, cocktail, and reception that were they near each other, or logistically, how did that work? I'm curious.
Yeah, so we had to get two sets of chairs. We did ceremony, cocktail hour, and dinner were all in different spaces,
Okay.
but they did a really good job at flipping the space, moving things around. But it did require us to get more sets of plates and tablecloths and glasses. She showed me like a confetti plate for the cake, and I was like, well, we need that.
Obviously, yes.
Yeah. And our cake was also very plain, so
Purposefully or
purposefully. We didn't want flowers on the cake or anything that
okay.
elaborate. And my husband's a big skier, so we got a
Mm.
cake that kind of looks like it just like has white mountains on it, but not, they're kind of subtle. Anyway, I thought the plates would like, make it seem like a real party.
The cake was for skiing, the plates were for the party.
Yeah. In the end, catering ended up being around 70K.
Okay. So that's almost a third. That's a good
Yeah,
chunk.
it was.
Okay.
I mean, that was like the biggest chunk.
Yeah.
But the museum required us to use one of 10 caterers on a specific list. And the first thing I had my planner do was reach out to these caterers, making sure they were available, and then also asking her opinion and see if she's worked with them before. And like, our caterer was truly, truly incredible. And like, every single penny, they were so good. The servers and captains and cleaning staff and bridal attendants that they brought were so professional and really helped us during the day.
I love hearing that. So I know that was a huge part of the experience for your guests as well. What about the food specifically? Were there specific things that you wanted to have for dinner or options?
Not really. We just wanted the food to be good.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, but we wanted the food to be good and like just like kind of similar to the way we eat, with simple food with like high quality ingredients. I wanted
Love
fish
that.
to like taste very good because it's like a good piece of fish instead of being like smothered in something that
Yeah. A
covers it.
sauce.
Exactly. We, of course, did like a tasting. I didn't actually eat on my wedding day. Like everyone told me I wouldn't, and I didn't. Um, not on purpose, but it was just like, you know, you blink it, it's over, and that's actually what happened. But I'm happy that I got to taste all the yummy food during the tasting.
Did you really not eat at all?
I had like a half a sweet green salad when I was getting ready, and then I had like 2 bites when I was sitting. And we did the thing where we got the sweetheart table, and I was like, we need the
Yes.
sweetheart table, not because I want everyone to look at us, but I'm just like, I'm gonna need time away from people, and I maybe sat at that sweetheart table just during speeches. It was just,
It was VIP vibes.
exactly. But I had friends who went to a wedding in Paris the week before our wedding, and they told us that the food at our wedding was better than the wedding in
Shut up.
Paris. So yeah, I
That's
made exactly. So I told it to my caterer that like, once again like confirmed the fact that the catering and everything was like the biggest part of the budget was really, really worth it for us. Yeah. And then tables and chairs were like 30K, which also was like something that you would never think would be that much money, but it was.
it adds up quickly.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned and I'm learning. I mean, being a photographer, we're just a small piece to a much bigger puzzle, and it's fun to learn about different parts of the industry and in different parts of the country. Okay, so food and seating, that was really big. So once you had those locked in, where did you go from?
So I guess we really, once again, leaned on the planner, and they were reaching out to then the smaller budget items, which was like band, flowers, photographer. We knew that we didn't want a videographer, that was something that wasn't important to us, and we didn't want to spend money on it. We budgeted around 10,000 for photography, which we heard was a good number in New York City to get like a high quality photographer, and we ended up getting like a bunch of good quotes right at that number. Actually, a good friend of mine is a wedding photographer.
And so you have like some insider knowledge too.
Yeah, well, and I also like really leaned on her during this whole thing, and she lives in Brooklyn, so she knows pretty much everyone in the industry in New York City, and was able to, tell me who's good and who's not.
Yeah. I'm like, anybody can post 5 great photos on their feed. That's how I feel about it. I'm like, show me an entire website. How do you interact with people? Those are the things I really want to know. So,
and she photographed my husband's sister's wedding before we got married, and a friend of mine's wedding. I got her a lot of business. So also I was able to like talk to them and be like, is she actually a good wedding photographer? And they're like, yes, she's actually good.
Wait, was it your friend that did it?
No, it was my friend. That was the reason why I chose my friend, was because.
Okay. Oh, I love that. That's so fun. Okay, so were there any other unexpected things that happened throughout the process? Because you already said you were a little surprised by chairs and, well, not by food, but by chairs.
So flowers, band, photographer, those were actually like the easier vendors for us to book from a price perspective, because I don't know, I feel like in New York City there's just like a couple of tiers, and you kind of pick a tier, and then all these quotes are around there.
Yeah, sure.
So then the challenge was just picking the right one. So that was easy to budget for, but the things that popped up that I had like no idea that we would need to budget for, lighting. We ended up paying like probably like $10,000 for lighting, which was something that I didn't even think was something that you needed.
Was that primarily the reception space?
Yes, and dinner, which was kind of there. The dinner was kind of on a balcony overlooking this big rotunda, so it's the whole space.
And was that a whole separate company, or was that something?
Yeah, it was a separate company.
They needed to come in and do, and that was primarily dinner and reception. Yeah, you know, I've been a part of quite a few weddings. I am always surprised to learn. Like when I see like draping and these beautiful lights, it's this whole production that is put on that it looks effortless, and maybe like it just appeared there, but it didn't. There's a whole, oftentimes quite a few companies that are coming in and doing that type of work. So, okay, tell me, were there any last minute details? You kind of mentioned those cocktails that you were surprised by, but any other last minute details that you felt like, I wasn't expecting that?
yes, there were a bunch of things. For example, like the lighting company gave us an original quote. We gave a deposit, said that we would pay the rest, and then of course, I mean, they were communicating with the planner,
Mm.
not me, which is good because that's why I hired the planner. Like a month or so, or a couple of weeks before the wedding, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna need more lights here, or these chairs were out of stock, so we're gonna have to get those chairs, and they're a different price."
So a quick, like a couple last minute changes that were not quite expected.
Yeah. And at that point, it's like I didn't feel like I had that much power to fight it
Mm.
or kind of say, what are my other options?
The lighting company, were they familiar with the space?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Lighting is hard because I think back and I'm like, oh, I didn't think it was too bright or I didn't think it was too dark. So I guess my money was worth it. But it's like one of those little things where it's probably the hard job for them to say, oh, lighting really creates the ambience of a space, which I believe.
Yeah, that is true.
But there was definitely a point where I just had too much on my plate and I kind of put my hands up and I said, fine.
It's gonna happen, and the planner has got this, I hope. Did you feel like she really took over the home stretch before?
Yeah, yeah, she did it. I was really glad that I like invested all this time in this building this relationship with her and, making sure that she handled all the logistics. Since it was a space that like doesn't do weddings, they had very specific times where you can bring things in, bring things out. And also specifically in New York City, which was another cost that was added, was that delivery costs are extremely, extremely expensive.
Oh my goodness, I can imagine that is true.
It adds, especially for catering. So we had like a refrigerator truck outside on the street. You need to pay for a permit for a refrigerator truck to be
Uh,
in the street. It's like all those things. And just having somebody
there's
who plans weddings in New York City as a living
exactly.
can handle all
We
that.
don't often have refrigerators in the desert. I've done a couple of weddings in Chicago actually, which is where I'm originally from. And I was chatting with the planner at the last one and just talking about the logistics of the day and how it's so different from what here in Arizona. So it's just, and I can only imagine in New York, it's even more so with being in downtown. It's a lot of things to navigate. And by things, I mean like people and cars.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Uh, yeah, I'll tell you a short story about something we didn't decide to invest in, which is that the museum had this like big outdoor space in the back and the terrace, and it's pretty much one of the
Mm,
big reasons why we chose the space because we really wanted to have a venue with an outdoor space if we were getting married in the summer, just as a place for
okay.
people to kind of escape like the loud music, which is something I always enjoy at the wedding. But I enjoyed the ability to escape, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, this outdoor space, you could put a tent up. And so as soon as we booked the venue, I was like looking into options to see if we can like have a tent in case it rains. We can like still use this giant space, whether it be for, cocktail hour or for dinner out there and dancing inside, and then use it kind of as like a lounge. The first quote that I got for a tent
Mm,
was $50,000,
yeah.
which I was floored by. That was something I had
Yes.
no idea. And it wasn't even like the actual tent cost maybe $15,000. It
Yeah.
was like
The
everything else,
labor. The labor.
the
Yeah.
delivery, the permits, like having like a fire exit in this tent. It was like all these things. So we ended up saying no to the tent.
Was the tent a backup plan in case it had rained?
No, the backup plan would be paying for a tent and then just not having them put it up.
Mm.
So I would have paid for it anyway, and I didn't want to do that. And it was also just a plain white tent. My whole thing was like, I'm like, this tent isn't even cute. I would have
Yeah.
to decorate it to make it look nice. Like I'm paying $50,000 for just like something that's kind of ugly. And
That's totally fair.
yeah, definitely did not think it was
So
worth.
you just negated that whole outdoor space altogether then?
So we ended up having our ceremony out there, And it
Okay.
did rain on our wedding day, and I
Hmm.
had to make a last minute decision about whether we would do the ceremony inside or outside. I didn't really like the indoor space to do it, and it wasn't raining that hard. And it actually did not rain for like the 45 minutes of our ceremony.
Wow. That's incredible.
I remember standing up there in front of our rabbi, and I took one moment and I looked to like the right, and a raised terrace, I mean, only by like one story in New York City. So if you look, you can still see people like walking on the street. And I saw a woman walking and she didn't have an umbrella. And I was so happy. Because I couldn't look ahead at my guests, but I saw this woman not using an umbrella, and I was like, okay, like I'm happy that we don't have this like ugly tent. And then
Yeah.
during dancing, people were able to go out there and eat their cake and not have to listen to the music. So it worked out.
I love that. That is so funny though. I think that's going to be one of your core memories from your wedding day is seeing a woman walking without an umbrella.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk about the actual wedding day too. First, like where did you end up? You started at 250K and then where did you end for your final budget?
I think we got to 250, and okay, this is bad, but I pretty much stopped counting, and that was just like the additional things of like extra costs from the lighting,
Okay.
all these extra things that kind of came up. And I know this is not something extra that comes up. Tips were a lot more than
Mm.
I thought, and of course everyone in the catering company was so amazing, so I wanted to tip them well because they did
Mm.
great. So I probably ended up spending another like 10 to 13K on tips. And I kind of at that point, I people say like add 10% to your budget, add 15% to your budget. So I had money kind of saved
Okay.
for all these extras, which of course I would recommend like anyone do, because your caterer will call you 2 weeks before and say, oh, actually this costs more,
Okay.
or we need a mixer for your specialty drink. So I was okay. Nothing was catastrophic, as like, didn't have to spend more than like 10K on anything that I didn't want.
Mm.
Kind of like $600 here, $700 there, which is a little. Of course, every time I think about it, I'm like, it's so expensive. This is a lot of money. I'm extremely privileged, and I like know all that. This spending all this money on one day, like, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? But thinking of it, yes, in like your budget, and this is what goes here and goes there, and also having extra makes the whole thing a little bit more comfortable. And also knowing that the wedding brought so much joy to a lot of our
Mm.
guests, not just us, made us think that it was worth it. So.
It was worth it. It absolutely was worth it. I've enjoying hearing about catering being a priority because maybe it's like my little bubble, but I hear a lot photography is a priority and those types of things. But I think that the meal is a huge part of the experience and the food and being able to share a meal together. I think it was worth it. Again, I'm biased. So, what was the final budget?
I kind of stopped
Oh
counting.
yeah. Oh, you did say that you stopped.
But I think it was I probably spent an extra 50K all in all.
Okay. So 300K. Okay.
300.
So then on the wedding day, tell me how that went. How did the wedding day go?
Other than like the possibility of rain, everything went very smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that, you know, time on this day is precious, and that I
Yeah.
looked at the whole day thinking, okay, how do I want to spend like every section of the day? And I'm an introvert. I get extremely overwhelmed with large amounts of people. And I've been a bridesmaid in 250 plus person weddings, and I've been in huge
Wow.
bridal parties, and I've been in small bridal parties. And I wanted to make sure that the beginning of the day, just me, my mom, my now mother-in-law, and then my husband's two sisters. It was just the four of us getting ready. It was such a good memory of
Mm.
having all four of us together. And it was when I was at my most calm and excited.
It's kind of the calm before the storm, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, we only had like maybe 20 or 30 guests that were coming in from out of town who needed a hotel. Most people were local, meaning either live in New York City or lived in the suburbs, so just drove in for the day. But yeah, we do have like 20 or 30 family members that were coming in from out of town. we got a hotel, and my mom really thought it was important to get a bus to take them to the venue. That was our biggest fight, kind of. It wasn't really a fight, but it was, I eventually put my hands up and I said fine. But the hotel was in Midtown. There's taxi cabs everywhere. You can get Uber. It's so easy to get anywhere. You can take the subway. Like, it's like the best place to be able to get anywhere. And my least favorite thing about weddings is having to sit on a bus with a bunch of people at the end of the night. Oh,
That's so funny.
anyway, money went toward the shuttle and I didn't really want it to. But anyway, we got ready and we got into the bus, and then the bus starts going downtown while the wedding was uptown. And the driver only spoke Spanish, and it took us like 10 blocks to realize that we're going in the wrong direction. Like, my father-in-law speaks Spanish, and I'm like, oh my God, because the driver was going to 14th Street. Well, we needed to go to 104th Street. And we eventually turned around and it was fine, but it was just like, we didn't need the bus.
Well, like, I told you so.
Yeah.
That's so funny. So, did you still get there on time? Was everything okay?
Yeah, we got there in time. Everything was fine. We took pictures in Central Park. Another cost. It's more than like 3 or 4 people. You need to get a permit to take a picture in Central Park. But
does that include the photographer and like the team of people too? So did you do that before heading to the museum? Okay. That was similar to when I was in Chicago for a couple weddings. And that's different than here in Arizona. For the most part, people are coming to a resort and they want the views that are at that resort. But when we were in Chicago, we went downtown, and then we went to the venue. So we started off at like Wrigley and then went downtown. So yeah, it's just a lot more logistics. And I was like, the last thing I want to be is a bus driver on a wedding day.
Exactly, especially when like people are screaming at you at like a different language. Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh. But we were lucky that Central Park was right across the street from the museum. So the driver only had to take us one place, and then after we walked across the street. And actually some of the cutest pictures are of us, or the photographer took pictures of also us walking across the street.
I think that's so fun. I mean, it's just real, you know what I mean? And I just love that so much. Yeah. Similarly in Chicago. So yeah, it's so fun to have like people all done up and beautiful walking with people that have like, I don't know, just left work or something. I've got a briefcase in hand.
Yeah.
Okay, so then cut to the ceremony where we saw the lady not using an umbrella.
Yes. Like the couple of weeks before, it was, I guess it's usually humid and gross in New York City in the summer, but it was so humid. And other things that like added cost, which is like, one, I was on Reddit because I'm always on Reddit, and people being like, oh, which you probably know, and you're a good photographer and you probably like, are careful about this, but people are like, oh yeah, 3 people fainted during my ceremony because I got married at like 4 p.m. in the summer outside in Arizona. And I was like, yeah,
we gotta be hydrated, people.
Like, yeah, and I was like, okay, no one's gonna like, take the attention away from me and faint during my freaking ceremony because it was like 90 degrees and so humid. So then talking to the caterer saying, okay, we need non-alcoholic mocktails to give out to people beforehand so they're cool. We bought like 50 mini fans from Amazon so people can hold them, which people were very grateful for.
That's very sweet of you to think of that. Yes.
I mean, sweet, but also once again selfish because I didn't want anyone taking the attention away from me or fainting during my big day.
Nobody's getting medical attention on my watch.
Exactly. So making sure people were comfortable. I'm Jewish, so before the ceremony we had a ketubah signing.
Yes.
And another cost, which is something like wasn't in the original like big list of things that you need to pay for, which is a ketubah, and is something that like my husband and I realized, we want to invest a lot of money in this because it's something that's going to be on our wall forever.
Yes.
So
that's an heirloom.
Yes, exactly. So I probably spent $3,000, which honestly I would have paid more because our ketubah is beautiful. Her calligraphy was ancient but also looks modern, and it was simple, but it's just so beautiful. Another option you can do, which is like for around $500, $600, go to ketubah.com, where they have like thousands and thousands of design and you just click, 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 put the words that you want, and then they send it to you.
Yeah.
So, but we wanted something that was like handmade, something that was special.
More personal. Yeah.
Exactly.
I would say that's a priority. That was a
Yes,
priority.
exactly. So we had the tuba signing, we did the ceremony. It
And
was
that's
like,
more private. It's more for people that don't know, correct?
yes, yes. It was
Okay.
just immediate family, but in the Jewish law is that people who are related to you can't sign the ketubah, like it's the Jewish marriage license. So like, we
Okay.
had Ben's sisters who were related to us sign our New York State marriage license, but then we had to get two people who weren't related to us also to come who knew how to sign their name in Hebrew.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
So I had like a childhood friend, and then Ben also had a friend come in to do that. But yeah, it was just in a small room in the museum, which was another thing. Like logistically, we needed to like make sure we had that space, had a table for all of us.
And probably the team, I can get a little bit tight when there's, well, you didn't have video, but photo and like logistically anybody else that may need to be in there.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, when you see these like people on red carpets and then you see the picture of the one person, you just see the one person, but then like behind it, it's like
Yes,
thousands and thousands of photographers. Like kind of
the
how you feel on your
paparazzi.
wedding day.
Yeah, that's 1,000% how it is on the wedding. Okay, so after the ketubah signing, that's when you went into the ceremony on the veranda, and then any other memorable moments from the ceremony and cocktail?
I don't know, another tip. I didn't see what the flowers are going to look like until I was walking down the aisle. And I also picked a florist that had never worked at the venue before. I like loved the flowers, like the aesthetics, but they don't know if they were placed in the right way. Like the pictures of me and my husband and our parents, or those are the only people up there. I didn't have a bridal party, and of course our rabbi.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
It looked like we were in a forest. There was so much greenery around us. It looked like we were like in a jungle or something. It was too much, and yeah, but I mean, like, I don't know. It is what it is. I'm not like that upset about it, but just as advice for anyone, making sure that the florist understands like where the flowers would go, where
Did
you're
they
going
do
to
a
stand.
walkthrough beforehand or anything, or no?
I don't know.
You don't know. I'm not sure. Okay.
Like, maybe they didn't do one with me personally.
Okay.
Maybe they did one with the planner, but I don't know. Also, I guess I don't know. Maybe I should be a little more upset about this. You would think that like you make sure
Yeah,
that
let's.
people would be able to see you through it, but it looks really pretty. You can kind of see that there are people behind there. The pictures without us also look gorgeous. Like just the pictures of like,
Of the setup.
yeah, just like kind of an elevated stage. Yeah, so I guess just my thoughts were like, wow, there's a lot of greenery here, but it's okay. Also, there was some like modern art pieces on this kind of like elevated patio where we stood, and the people kind of sat in rows a couple of steps down behind us.
Okay.
So the greenery also covered up the modern art, which was something that we wanted, but it was just a little too much.
It worked in that way, but maybe
correct.
slightly backfired. So then for the reception, tell me about the reception. How did that go?
It went well. We had cocktail hour. We didn't really coordinate a grand entrance, and then after we were already talking to people, the photographer was like, "Oh, you should really like walk down those stairs because they'd be really beautiful." And we're like, "Yeah." So then we like were talking to people, and then we kind of did a fake big entrance. One of my husband's relatives put his entire body weight on a table at a bar that was, holding all of the glasses. So probably like in the middle of cocktail hour, hundreds of glasses broke.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Um, it was kind of upsetting, but once again, the caterers were incredible. They cleaned it up. I can't even believe how quickly they cleaned it up.
I love how the caterers are like the low-key MVPs of this
Yes. They
entire
really
experience.
And another priority for us during cocktail hours that we've been to so many weddings, we're like, okay, you show up to the wedding, you wait, you do the ceremony, you come back, you usually are like, okay, I'm hungry now. It's usually around like what, 7 or 8. It's like actual dinner time. and you overdo it. And you get your real dinner and you're like, ugh,
Not even hungry.
exactly. But we did not want that. We wanted people to be so hungry so they could eat the real meal. So we just did past hors d'oeuvres and then we had like one station. Since the dinner was on a different level than the dancing, we just did two courses. We did appetizers and entrees back to back and didn't do like
Okay.
entree, dancing, sit back down. Like we didn't,
That's a lot. Yeah, having people up and down, up and down.
yeah. And like the stairs, and there's only one elevator. It like was a lot easier to just make sure that we did one transfer.
Yeah.
So, and I actually enjoyed that. So instead of sitting down at a table and being like, oh, we're only going to be here for 10, 15 minutes, like actually being able to like sit and enjoy the people you're talking to and be
Yes.
served two full courses. And we had speeches. The band played during dinner, which I really did not want them to, and they did, and it was so loud.
What did you want to happen during dinner?
I just didn't want it to be, I want people to be able to have conversations.
Okay.
Too loud. I was like so overwhelmed at that point. I kind of just like knew it was too loud and people were complaining to me, but I also like, ugh, didn't really care that much because then when people were coming up to me, I'd just be like, uh-huh, yeah, thank you for coming. Yes.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Wow. But then when everybody transferred down to dancing, I'm assuming there was more happy vibes.
Yeah. We did the horror, which is like this Jewish
Yeah.
kind of like dance where they put you in chairs, which was a lot of fun, and
So
you
fun.
dance in circles. Yeah, and then the band played for like about an hour. We did something called a silent cake cutting, which is what my planner called it. So the whole joke was I was like, shh. Um, but it was just that we didn't like have everyone stop dancing and like announce everyone. We are cutting
Mm.
the cake now. We just
Yeah.
my husband
Just
just and
sneaky.
our parents went to the side, cut the cake, and then they kind of served that like past style. And then we had also some past desserts, and that's when people who wanted to dance stayed on the dance floor, and then people who didn't like went outside
And
to the patio and hung out.
got to use that space. I love that. It
Yeah.
sounds like overall everything went really well.
It did, and it was an amazing day. It's a big investment, but it's like something that's, really special, and you have these like memories forever. And when you're like a kid, there's nothing better than like going to your friends' houses and like looking at their wedding pictures on their walls and being like, oh my god, I can't believe that the sleeps were that big in the 80s.
I kind of love the idea of people going with trends. I felt very nervous to do anything that would feel outdated. And I was like, well, I think at some point it is just all going to feel outdated. But that's also like the beauty of it is to look at the time that we got married and, what was popular and all of that. Okay, if you had, I feel like you've already given a couple, so maybe you can just repeat yourself or you have something totally different. But would you have a piece of advice for a couple who's entering their wedding planning journey?
Yeah, I guess my only advice would really be to sit down with your partner and talk about each other's visions for the day and come to some kind of agreement together of what you want. Because if you have an idea of one thing, your partner has an idea of another thing, it's more challenging to have conversations with vendors and kind of figuring out how to move forward. So kind of figuring all that stuff out beforehand, yeah, is really important. And yeah, putting together like a good list of must-haves together and then being extremely clear to the vendors of what your vision is for these must-haves.
I love that. Priorities and like very clear communication.
Yes. Yes.
I love that. Okay, my very last question. Was it worth it?
Yes, it was worth it. It was worth it. Yeah. I mean, our wedding was so special and so unique and also so us. I'm so happy that we got married in an institution that's so important to New York. It's the Museum of the History of New York. I didn't mention this, but we got to have an exhibit open during our cocktail hour. So
Wow.
people were able to walk around and learn about the history of New York, which I know our guests really, really enjoyed. And like me and my husband are also history lovers. So I love that it was like a reflection of who we are.
I was just going to say that's so special for you too. And that's such a cool experience for your guests. I love that. Emma, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your experience and It's so fun to hear about a New York wedding and all the logistics and stuff that go into it. Even some of the hiccups that make it kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, like on the day of, so overwhelming, like
Yeah.
bus going the wrong way, freaking out. But it only takes like a couple of weeks to be like, that was insane, crazy journey, and every little part of it made it the special day that it was.
Yeah. Thank you so, so much. Thank you so much for joining us. If you were recently married, or if you know somebody who was recently married who might be super fun to chat with about their wedding planning journey and how they decided to allocate their funds and how everything came together, you can find us on Instagram at Wed and Worth It. There's a form within that bio you can fill out, or just feel free to send us a DM. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you next time.